Shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Namaskar. Good morning to one and all. First of all, I warmly welcome you all to the online course conducted by Mahila Mahavidyalaya Nandanvan Nagpur in collaboration with R.S. Mundle Dharampet Arts and Commerce College Nagpur, Rajkumar Keval Ramani Kanya Mahavidyalaya Nagpur, and the Board of Studies in English, Rashtrasanta Tukroji Maharaj Nagpur University Nagpur. Before we go into the depth of discussion, let me introduce the resource person of the day. Dear students, today we have an experienced speaker, Dr. Manjushri Deshpande, who is going to conduct the session on literary terms. Dr. Manjushri Sir Deshpande is the head Department of English, R.S. Mundle, Dharampet College, Nagpur. She is also working as an IQAC coordinator at the same college. She has got huge experience of teaching in the field of higher education. She is a poet, writer, editor, translator, and teacher trainer. Her poem, Man Fears Man, was prescribed for 12th standard. Her poems have been published in newspaper and anthologies. She has translated Sri Rangahari's book, Dharma and Culture, which has been well received. She was the coordinator of the Epigram Festival in Nagpur and also the sorry. Ma'am, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Actually, I got disconnected due to electricity failure. Now I
Okay.
am. So, dear students, she has completed UGC sponsored minor research project. She is the chairperson, English Language Committee, Textbook Bureau, Balbharti. She is also a member on the Board of Studies of Rashtrasanta Tukroji Maharaj Nagpur University, Nagpur, Brihan Mumbai College of Commerce, Pune, Kavi Kulguru Kalidas Sanskrit Vishwavidyalaya Ramtek. She is the Vice President of Vidya Bharati Higher Education, New Delhi. She is the examiner of Business English Certificate course for Cambridge. Her biodata is too long to read out in a few minutes. We are really fortunate enough to have such a lady with us today on this occasion. I hope her deliberate discussion on the literary forms will definitely prove to be beneficial to all of us. Once again, on behalf of all three colleges, I welcome you all to this online course, and without wasting time, I invite Dr. Manjushri Sardeshpande Madam to carry out the session. Dr. Sardeshpande Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anil Dodevar, sir. And actually, it is a pleasure being with all of you here today. And today we'll be discussing literary terms. But before I begin, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to conduct this session. And thank you very much, Dr. Dodevar. So we'll start with literary terms. I would like to share my screen. So students, actually, as far as literary terms are concerned, there are 8 literary terms which are prescribed for BA Part 1. And though they carry just 1 mark per literary term, still you should understand the meaning of that literary term, because if you are a student of literature, you should know the usage of that term. You should understand the meaning of that term to understand the literary, whatever the resources are, you will understand them better if you know these terms. So let us first understand the meaning of conceit. The first term given to us is conceit. So what is conceit? Basically, conceit is an extended metaphor. It is a comparison. Friends, you know the meaning of the difference between a simile and metaphor. Both are comparisons. In simile also there is a comparison. It is a direct comparison. And in metaphor, it is an implied comparison. And when we are talking about conceit, it is an extended metaphor. Now let us see what an extended metaphor is. So as a literary device, a conceit uses an extended metaphor, and it compares two very dissimilar things. Now we'll see how dissimilar things are compared. Maybe we won't even imagine that such a comparison can be done, such a comparison can exist. Okay, a conceit is often elaborate and it controls a large section of a poem or the entire poem. So when we are talking about a simile or metaphor, it is just, the comparison is just in 1 or 2 lines. But when it is a conceit, it is a chunk, it is maybe a section of the poem, or maybe many a times it is the whole poem also. Okay, the full poem has this conceit. It is an extended metaphor. Conceits are often quite unique and ingenuous. So they are unique. Why? Because they are special in their own kind. We cannot even imagine that such a comparison can be done. Ingenious means clever. Okay. Metaphysical poets were very intelligent, clever, witty. So they used to think about witty comparisons which were really could be understood only by intellectuals. Why such a comparison has been made? And it can present striking juxtaposition and comparison of unlike things. So we'll be taking some examples wherein we can understand how different things have been compared. So at times this can mean that the reader is strongly aware of the dissimilarities between the two things. So many a times we are aware, we can see, but we don't know how these things are going to be compared or what is the point of comparison. But when we give a thought to it, we realize the comparison. So yet the conceit broadens the reader's awareness of the complexity of the things in questions. Yes. So why the comparison has been done, what is that point of comparison, and the depth of the meaning, that is called the sophistication of understanding. So a conceit therefore often contributes to a greater sophistication of understanding. Suddenly you realize, oh, this is the way it is being compared. about the thing being compared due to the surprise factor of the unusual comparison. So that is, you are surprised because of the unusual comparison. Now, there are two types of conceits. One is Petrarchan conceit, and the second type is metaphysical conceit. Now, what is this Petrarchan conceit? So, Petrarchan conceit is named after the Italian poet Petrarch, and it applies to, you know, that Petrarchan sonnets you must have heard. So, it applies to love poetry, in which the beloved is compared hyperbolically to extreme experiences of thing. So here the beloved is compared hyperbolically, means there is an exaggeration of comparison. Maybe the beloved can be compared, you must have read the sonnets of Shakespeare. You must have read the Petrarchan sonnets and the different sonnets, and you must have seen how the beloved is compared. So it is through these hyperbolic comparisons that the poet demonstrates the blissful heights and the desperate lows of being in love. So in the example, we'll see how these comparisons are made. And in the metaphysical conceit, it is an imaginative leap which is made to compare two very unlikely things and explore their similarities. So now let us see here. Life is a bowl of cherries. See, life is a bowl of cherries. Now, why is life called a bowl of cherries? When we look at this, we feel, why is life called a bowl of cherries? Then after giving a thought, we come to, yes, life is very interesting. Life is sweet. So like cherries, life might be sweet. The person who's saying life is a bowl of cherries, for him, life must have been very sweet. It must have been very happy. So that's why he's saying life is a bowl of cherries. But in the first, just by looking at it at the first instance, we feel, why is life compared to a bowl of cherries? But then the sweetness of the cherries is compared. That is the point of comparison. Now, dead as a doornail. Why dead as a doornail? That means life, without any life. He's just dead as a doornail. That means he's lifeless. Okay. Then fit as a fiddle. Now here fiddle is a violin. Okay, fit as a fiddle. Why violin? Violin has a beautiful shape. Yes. So fit as a fiddle, and it is alliteration also. Fit as a fiddle. So it is a beautiful comparison. And a person who is physically fit, the shape of his body is like a violin. So if you have a violin shape, that shows that you are physically fit. So, as it is, that in a metaphor, the comparison is understood, at the back of the mind. And in similes, the comparison is given. So why a person is called, his fitness is like a fiddle. So why the comparison is not given? If it would have been given, it would have been a simile. Okay, but it is understood. It is an implied comparison. So it is said fit as a fiddle. So it is, the person is physically fit. His body, his shape is like a fiddle, which shows that the person is physically fit. So these are the metaphorical comparisons. Now let us see the examples of Petrarchan conceits. Named after the Italian poet Petrarch, a Petrarchan conceit is typically found in poems about lamented love, common in Renaissance writing. Now we have taken these lines from Epithalamion by Edmund Spenser. Her goodly eyes like sapphires shining bright. See, he's talking about the beloved. And look at the comparison. Her goodly eyes like sapphires shining bright. Her forehead ivory white. Her cheeks like apples which the sun had flooded. Her lips like cherries charming men to bite. My God. So see, her goodly eyes like sapphires. So see, the eyes are compared to sapphires. So beautiful blue eyes. Her forehead, ivory white. So this is, you're talking about the skin, which is white. Her cheeks are like red like apple. So the colors are there. And you can see how beautiful comparison this is. And so this is, you can say, Petrarchan conceit, because it is hyperbole. It is an exaggerated comparison, that the cheeks are like apples. It is an exaggerated comparison. They are so red like apple. Her lips are like cherries. Okay. So So in Epithalamion, it is easy to see how conceit was used to discuss features of his love. So he's so much in love that he is describing the beloved with such beautiful things. Look at the way he's comparing the eyes of his beloved, the forehead, the so all the physical features, So this shows he's madly in love with the beloved. So not only were her eyes compared to sapphires, but her skin to ivory, her cheeks to apples, and her lips to cherries. So in addition to showcasing her beauty, Spencer is making his love appear succulent and mouth-watering as well. Yes. So because the lips are like cherries, so that the men would like to bite them. So that this is a little bit of, there is a sexual overtone here. Now we'll move ahead. Example of metaphysical conceit. So this is taken from Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Macbeth does murder sleep, the innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the raveled sleep of care, the death of each day's life, sore labor's bath, balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course, chief nourisher in life's feast. So here, see how uh, what has happened to sleep after Macbeth has committed those murders. So here Macbeth uses metaphysical conceits throughout. For example, in Act 2, Scene 2, here we have taken this from Act 2, Scene 2, sleep is compared to death, then a bath and a second course. This works to excite the reader and draw your attention to Macbeth's conscience and how he is disturbed by the murders he committed. So see in the first line, Macbeth does murder sleep. So he has murdered sleep only. He is not able to sleep. The innocent sleep. See, sleep is innocent. Sleep is called innocent. Sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care. So what is sleep? Yes, once you really get sleep, uh, you forget about the cares, you forget about the worries, and once, yes, so sleep takes care of all the cares. The death of each day's life. So see, what is sleep? It is the death of each day's life. Once the life is end, the life comes to an the day comes to an end, so it ends in a sleep. So as the life comes to an end in death, the whole day comes to an end in a sleep. So that is, whatever must have happened during the day, ultimately it finds peace in sleep. So sore labor's bath. So if you are tired and if you are really worked up, if you really are in tension, and if you have a bath, all your worries are washed away. So this is the effect of bath, So what is sleep? So sore labor's bath. So balm of hurt minds. So if you get a peaceful sleep, it has that balming effect on your mind. So see, such beautiful lines, where this metaphor, where it's a beautiful um, explanation of sleep. Sleep is given, the effect of sleep. What happens when sleep is murdered? Yes, a person who doesn't get sleep can only understand the importance of sleep. So here it is an extended metaphor. All these lines, they talk about sleep. They talk about what happens when a person has murdered his sleep. Yes. And just because Macbeth has committed so many murders, he has murdered his sleep too. He has murdered his sleep. He has murdered means he has murdered his restlessness. He doesn't have peace, and all these things are reflected in these lines. So to uh, to experience what really Macbeth might be going through, these lines tell you, and with the help of this metaphor. So it is an extended metaphor. It is a beautiful conceit. So this is called as a metaphysical conceit. Then, but you have to just remember that conceit is an extended metaphor. Okay. And it is of two types, Petrarchan and metaphysical. And you can give examples of also if you want. Now we move on to decorum. What is decorum? Now, every now and then we say you have to maintain the decorum of this particular place, or you have to maintain the decorum. So, decorum is a word which is used every now and then. Let us see what this word decorum means. So, decorum in literary style, it is the appropriate rendering of a character, action, speech, or scene. So, we know that in a novel or in a play, the character must be appropriate. Okay, the the rendering of the character, the dialogues of the character must be appropriate. Okay, the action must be appropriate, the speech must be appropriate. So we talk about this appropriateness. The concept of literary outlined by Aristotle. So we know that about this propriety, about this appropriateness, it was talked by Aristotle. In later classical criticism, the Roman poet Horace maintained that to retain its unity, a work of art must be consistent in every aspect. So the subject, the theme, it must be dealt with in the proper diction, meter, form, and tone. Farcical characters should speak in the manner befitting their social positions. What does that mean? Like, for example, if it is a king in the play, the king should intone with elegance and dignity, commensurate with their ranks. So the dialogues of the kings, they should have lofty words. Yes. And how should, if it is a common person, then the lofty words would seem to be out of place. So if it is a commoner, the dialogues, the words, the diction should be appropriate to a person who is a common man, who is playing the role of a common man. And if the person is a king, then the dialogues, the diction, the words should be appropriate and befitting to the character of the king. Now, in classical rhetoric, decorum is use of style that is appropriate to a subject, situation, speaker, and audience. This is what we talked about just now. According to Cicero's discussion of decorum, the grand and important themes should be treated in a dignified and noble style, and the humble or trivial theme is less exalted in manner. So your language will be appropriate if it expresses emotion and character, and if it corresponds to its subject. So we should see what the subject is, and according to the subject, the language should be according to the subject, according to the character who is going to uh, use that language, use that dialogue. Correspondence to subject means that we must either speak casually, we neither speak casually about weighty matters. So if we are talking about some weighty matters, means some serious things, then the dialogue should be uh, according to the theme, nor solemnly about trivial ones. Or if you are talking about something very light, then the dialogue also should be befitting. So, nor must we add ornamental epithets to commonplace nouns, or the effect will be very comic. So if it is a servant, and if you are addressing him as you might address a king, then it will feel out of place. It will be very, very funny. Okay. For example, if a servant is coming, and if we say "Aiye Maharani," so that is, that is ironically also we might be using that, but we say that the dialogues, the diction, everything should be appropriate to the subject, to the character, to the situation. To express emotion, you will employ the language of anger in speaking of outrage. So if you are angry, if you want to, if it is a burst of anger, then the words should be befitting so that your anger can be expressed. The language of disgust, discreet reluctance to utter a word when speaking of impiety or foulness. So, every emotion has a particular way of dialogue delivery, or using or throw of those words. If you are using love words, you are not going to use it very roughly. You are going to, the tone also will be very smooth, the tone also will be very sweet. But if you are going to express anger, the words would also show anger, and the delivery and the diction means the words, and the delivery also would show anger. So the language of exaltation for a tale of glory. So if it is a story which is full of glory, if it is telling about the praise of some, or it is in praise of some achievement, then the word should be exalted. The word should be in praise. And that of humiliation for a tale of pity. If it is a tale of pity, if it is if it is a tale of sadness, story of sadness, then your voice, your tone, your pitch, everything should go accordingly. And so on in all the other cases. This aptness of language. So this is called the aptness of language. This is one thing that makes people believe in the truth of your story. If you are angry and if you don't use proper words, then the people who are listening to your story might not believe the truth if the words are not appropriate. Their minds draw the false conclusion that you are to be trusted from the fact that others behave as you do when things are as you describe them. Therefore, they take your story to be true, whether it is so or not. So, you have to use words according to the emotion. Now, we move ahead to, so decorum also, see, I'll give you 2 3 examples. For example, if you are going, if you are mourning, if you are going to a place where somebody has died, so you have to wear clothes suitable to the occasion. You cannot wear fancy clothes. You'll have to wear something which is not necessarily black, but black is often worn at such a place. So you have to think about the clothes you are wearing. You have to think about the words you are using. You have to think about the tone. So, okay, so this, it should be befitting to the occasion. And in the same way, if you are going for a wedding, you have to dress according to the occasion. So that is the decorum you have to follow. If you are going to an office, you have to follow the decorum of the office. You have to see whether you are dressed appropriately, as you know how it is said of official wear, okay, or formal wear. Party wear. Party wear means the clothes which are befitting for a party. Official wear or formal wear, that is clothing which is fit for wear, to be worn in an office. So you cannot wear party clothes to a funeral and a funeral clothes to a party. So everything is, so you have to maintain the decorum. So when you are moving about in society, you have to follow etiquettes, and the social etiquettes you have to follow. So this is, all these things will go in decorum. Discipline also goes in decorum. If you are in office, you have to come on time. You have to, if you have given time to someone, you have to maintain the time. All this will go in decorum. So discipline, then your etiquettes, then your clothing, and your demeanor, your behavior, everything will go in the decorum. This is called the decorum. And all these things will also be reflected in the literature. So while we are reading also, if it is a play, then decorum means even the writer has to maintain this decorum. He has to maintain the appropriateness of his character. If the character is a king, then he has to see that the costume, the dialogues, the diction, everything is befitting to a king. And if it is a commoner, then everything should be befitting to the commoner. Okay. Now, denouement. What is denouement? Now, you know that whenever you must have read a story, first it is the exposition. Yes. Then there is complexity of the plot. The plot reveals, you are after the exposition, the plot is revealed, and it goes up till the climax. And after the climax, it goes down. That is, there is a turn of events, and ultimately it is a resolution. Or that means the plot is resolved. That is, the complexity is resolved. Okay. So in a literary work, the denouement is the resolution of a plot that occurs after its climax. So denouement is not a literary technique. Rather, it is one of the several literary terms that describes plotted conflicts unfolding and resolution. So resolution means the complexity is solved. If there is a problem, it has received its solution. It has got the solution. So denouement is the point in the story in which the conflict is resolved. In every story, there is a conflict. Conflict has to be there. Okay. And then when the conflict is resolved at the end of the story, so denouement is the end of the story. It is towards the conclusion. When the story comes to an end, we say it is the denouement. That is the fall of action, or when the conflict is resolved. So borrowed from French, the word derives from Latin and literally means untie the knot. So the knot is untied. That means the complexity is resolved, which refers to the narrative entanglements the author has woven through the first four stages of the plot development. So how the plot develops, and then how it uh, entangles, and how then it unties the knot, and you get either solution. Ultimately, the end is either a tragedy or a comedy, whatever it is. But the end, when the problems are solved, when the story has come to an end, it is the denouement. The denouement always occurs after the climax, in the final part of the story's narrative. So first it is the exposition, then you reach the climax, then it is the coming down, and once the resolution of it, the problems are resolved, then it is called the denouement. Denouement means the end. Now, here we have taken an example from Romeo and Juliet, and this is the last, towards the end. After reading this, you come to know that it is the denouement. See, Capulet, O brother Montague, give me thy hand. This is my daughter's jointure, for no more can I demand. But I can thee, Montague says, but I can give thee more, for I will raise her statue in pure gold, that whiles Verona by that name is known as that of true and faithful Juliet. So see, now towards the end, when both their beloved children are committing suicide, yes, so at the tomb, these people are saying that, yes, I will raise a statue in pure gold. So now they have realized and that their rivalry must end. And therefore, from the dialogues, we come to know that this is towards the end. Capulet, as rich are Romeo's by his ladies lie, poor sacrifices of our enmity. And the prince says, a glooming peace this morning with it brings, the sun for sorrow will not show his head. So we know that it is towards the end. So this denouement occurs in the play when the Capulets and the Montagues see their beloved children committing suicide at the tomb. The heads of the family, they realize that their bitter rivalry must end. So Lord Capulet and Lord Montague, they agree to end their dispute to avoid further tragedy in the future. So towards the end, we realize that they have realized their mistake, and so this is we realize that this is the end. So this is the denouement. Now we come to dialect. What is a dialect? A dialect is any particular form of a language spoken by a section of people, okay, or some group of people. For example, if we talk about Marathi, the Marathi which we talk in Nagpur is different. The Marathi which we talk in Kolhapur is different. The Marathi which we talk in Pune is different. In Aurangabad, it's different. So these are the different dialects of Marathi. Okay, but what is a dialect, and when is it called as a standard language? Now, for example, these are different dialects. Okay, but for example, in Hindi also, if we say, "आप क्या कह रहे हो?" and if you say, "आप ka kahat hai. So, but you will not write ka kahat hai. Why? Because it is a dialect. You will just write kya keh rahe ho. Okay, because that is a standard form. So that is what is written. Okay. So if it is the written language, then it is in the standard form. Otherwise, it is the dialect. So we have, for one language, we might have so many different dialects. English also has so many different dialects. They have given one or two dialects over here: Southern English, Black English. So these are the different English dialects of English. So a dialect is any particular form of a language spoken by some group of people. In literature, dialect means a form of writing that shows the accent and the way people talk in a particular region. Because of this, it can sometimes risk being offensive to the people you are imitating. Many a times, if we, if we are talking a type of Marathi which is spoken in rural areas, so maybe those people might sometimes get hurt. They might feel that you are teasing them, or you are imitating them, or you are making fun of them. So you have to be very careful when you are writing dialects. So because of this, it can risk being offensive to the people you are imitating. But lots of great authors have used dialects in their stories. Why do people use dialects in their stories, or whenever they write something? Why do they use dialects? Dialects are used, to give that realistic feeling. If you are showing an uneducated person, or a rustic, or a person from rural area, you will have to use the language which he speaks. So definitely it cannot be a polished language. So you have to use generally the dialects are spoken uh, in such places, and you have to use dialects to show that, to give that realistic feeling. And if you do it carefully, it can give a lot of color and realism to a novel, a poem, or a story. So writing dialect is mainly about representing people's speech in the way. So okay, so you are if you realistically depicting the person who is there who is playing that character. So if it is uh, the dialects talk about the region the people belong to. So if it is a person who belongs to Kolhapur, you will have to use Kolhapuri Marathi. You'll have to use, in serials you see different types of Marathi being used, or different types of Hindi being used. Why? If that particular Hindi, which is used in Rajasthan, is being shown in a serial which might be depicting people from Rajasthan, to give that realistic feeling. Otherwise, if you show people from Rajasthan and if they speak Hindi like people from Madhya Pradesh, it won't go. It will not give that realistic feeling. So that's why, and dialects means the form of, it is also a language. It is the different ways different languages are spoken. So writing dialect is mainly about representing people's speech in the way it really sounds. It really sounds means how the language is really spoken in that particular region. For example, spelling governor as gubna. So so this is in English, governor. In some areas, they speak fast. They say gubna. This also includes writing sentences with the unusual grammar of the dialect, such as I ain't seeing na gabna means I ain't seeing nothing, governor. I ain't seeing nothing, governor. So this is, see, you have to write it also like that, because if you write, I ain't seeing nothing, governor, it won't sound as if the person belongs to this region. So he will speak like this only. I ain't seeing nothing, governor. So you have to write it also like that to give the feeling that this particular person belongs to this region and he is delivering this dialogue. Now, for example, I'll get the check. Okay, I will get the check. Maybe an Indian person might say this like this: I'll get the check. Well, because in Marathi they say for get, they'll say gate. For check, they'll say check. It's elongated. The accent is elongated. So they are into the habit of speaking like this: I'll get the check. They don't say check, they'll say check. For pen, they'll say pen. I've brought your pen. So it is elongated accent. So for pen, they say pen. So for get, they'll say I'll get it, get it. So these are the dialects. So if you want to show people belonging to that particular, to a different region, you have to use the dialect which is spoken in that region. Dialect means the language. The way the language is spoken in a particular region is a dialect. So that can be different forms of the language. So Marathi can be in so many different forms. It can be spoken in n number of ways in different regions. Now, risks and benefits of dialect. The main benefits of dialect are in developing more realistic and lifelike characters and settings. This is what I told you, that if you use the dialect, it will give a realistic feeling. It allows your reader to imagine exactly how the reader's voice might sound as they speak. So, in different regions, they have a different accent. They have a different tone, the way that the words are spoken. Uh, so it is different. So if you want people to belong to that region, then you have to use words which will show that the person belongs to that region. So if your characters live in a place like New Orleans or Boston, so in New Orleans, Boston, they have a strong accent. It helps the reader to really feel like they are there and can show the reader a lot about the place. So just by the way you speak, the person who is listening to you will understand from where you are coming from. So they know, if you now here in Maharashtra, if you speak in Marathi, they'll know whether you are from Nagpur, they'll know whether you are from Pune, they'll know whether you are from Aurangabad, they'll know whether you are from Kolhapur by just listening to the way you speak. So in the same way, it happens with English. The way you speak, the way your intonation is, the way the throw of words is, it will help the listener to understand from the region from where you belong to where you belong, and whether the characters are educated or come from a disadvantaged neighborhood. That also I told you, that here also we know how the people from rural Maharashtra speak. So suddenly, like at once, we come to know that yes, this is a person who belongs to a rural place. There are several risks, though. The main one is that it can just be confusing. It takes some readers a lot of effort to understand dialect. Like we are familiar with Marathi, so we'll understand the different dialects of Marathi. But maybe when we are talking about dialects of different languages, maybe we are not aware of the different dialects, and therefore it can be many a times confusing. It is important to make sure anyone can understand it. So when you are writing a different dialect, it should be pointed out so that it becomes so that the reader understands that it is a dialect and who is speaking it, uh, what type of a character this person is, from where does he belong to, and therefore this is the dialect which is being spoken in that particular region. Second, dialect can be very offensive. It calls attention to the fact that some people's speech is different while other speech is considered normal. So again, this is very important. Uh, if somebody might, maybe some people might feel that you are underestimating their language, you are considering their language to be inferior. So they can be hurt. So you have to be careful when you are talking about a particular language. Then dialects can be distracting. If you are using a dialect uh, for a long time, the main the message which needs to be communicated is lost. So actually, uh, it should be therefore restricted to the the way to the what you say, to communicate what is being what needs to be communicated. So the more your reader pays attention to how someone speaks, the less attention they are paying to what the character has to say. As a writer, that's not a situation you usually want to create. So less attention should be paid to the dialect, because it plays a very small role. You just want to show that this particular person belongs to this region, and his dialect is, his way of speaking is like this. Not the attention should not go more than this. Now, diction. Diction is word choice and phrasing, and it's a feature of the speech. Every person has their own favorite words and sentence structures, and so does each culture. So when you write in dialects, you are trying to capture a group's diction as well as their accent. So you know that diction also varies. Diction is the words a person speaks. So if it is an educated person, the choice of words would be different. If it is an uneducated person, the choice of words would be different. Again, if a person is a doctor, his choice of words would be different. If a person is a farmer, maybe the choice of words would be different. Okay, so people even belonging to different professions might use some select words. So again, diction depends on the profession. Diction depends on the geographical location. So all this is about dialect and diction. So what is dialect? It is a particular form of language spoken by some group of people. Okay, so in different regions, people speak in different languages, different different forms of languages. So now we've come to know how languages can differ and what is the difference between a language and a dialect. For example, Marathi, the different forms of Marathi will be called dialects of Marathi. Okay. Now, Marathi is a language, Gujarati is a language, okay? Marathi, Gujarati, Punjabi, these are languages. But when you have different forms of Marathi, they are called dialects. So in the same way, when you have different forms of English, they are called dialects, okay? Now, epigraph. What do you mean by epigraph? Epi means something which is written upon. Graph is written. Graph. And epi is something which is written upon. So this is epigraph. An epigraph is a short standalone quote, line or paragraph that appears at the beginning of a book. Now, all these literary terms, you just need to write one or two sentences about the literary term. Okay. I am telling you in detail so that you can understand the meaning of that literary term. But as far as the definition is concerned, you have to write it as it is in one or two sentences. So an epigraph is a short standalone quote. Epigraph. So where are generally epigraphs written? So you will find them in the books many a times. Before, when you open the book, there is an epitaph before the book begins. So the word epigraph is derived from the Greek epigraphein, means to write on. So write on, that is what I told you. Epi means on, graph means that which is written. So the use of epigraphs varies from book to book. But generally, so epigraph in different books, you have different epigraphs. So authors use them to set up themes or place the events of their story in context. Before the story begins, they'll give a quotation, or maybe they'll write a few sentences which will tell you the theme of the story. Okay, epigraphs are most commonly a short quotation from an existing work. So you can take a quotation from some different work and you can place it here so that it reveals the theme of your book. Epigraphs are they usually appear offset by quotation marks at the beginning of a text, but there are no set rules dictating how writers use them. Okay, so what you need to remember that epigraphs are placed at the beginning of a book. Okay, so they are epigraphs. What is the purpose of an epigraph? Now, an epigraph can serve a number of different purposes. Whether a literary work is fiction or non-fiction, epigraphs serve to clue readers into some element of the work they are about to read. So they tell you about the work in a few lines. Okay, sometimes authors use epigraphic quotes to set up larger themes they will explore later in their books. So other epigraphs set up expository information that will help the reader understand the work. So basically, what are epigraphs? Epigraphs are the quotes or maybe a paragraph which appears before a book begins, before the starting of a book. Now, what is the difference between an epigram and epigraph? Okay. Now, epigram is a poem. It is epigram and epigraph. Both of them are, epigram is a little poem, a small poem. It is a small statement. It is a clever statement also. So here we have an example of epigram. one of Oscar Wilde's many memorable epigrams is, I can resist everything but temptation. So this is a small line, okay? It serves as an epigram. But an epigraph is a specific kind of epigram. It is a witty statement that's inscribed somewhere, such as on a building or at the beginning of a chapter or a book. So this statement is called epigram, but the moment it is put on a book, the moment it is put on a building, it becomes an epigraph. Okay, so this is the small difference between epigram and epigraph. Now we come to epiphany. What is an epiphany? Epiphany is that aha moment. As a literary device, okay, it is called epiphany. It is the moment when a character is suddenly struck with a life-changing realization which changes the rest of the story. So epiphany means you are doing something, you are doing your normal routine, you are doing your work, and suddenly you get an idea. Suddenly it dawns upon you that, oh yes, you might be thinking of some problem which is going on, and while doing some other menial work or some maybe you are cooking at home and suddenly you get an answer to your problem which you were thinking about. So that is that epiphanic moment. So often an epiphany begins with a small everyday occurrence or experience. For example, in the middle of a typical argument with his wife, a man is having an argument with his wife, and suddenly the man realizes that he has been the one causing every single argument, and that in order to keep his marriage, he must stop being such an aggressive person. So the husband and wife are having an argument, and during this argument only the man realizes, oh my God, it dawns on him, oh, it is this thing which causes, this is the thing which is responsible for arguments, and this is the thing which is a problem, which is the cause of worry. So then he realizes that yes, I should fix this particular thing if I want to have peace in my marriage. So he realizes he must change his attitude in order to fix his marriage. So this is the revelation he gets suddenly when he is in argument with his wife. Such revelations or such things can dawn on you anytime. Okay. Now, the importance of using epiphany. Why do the writers use epiphanies in their writings? Epiphanies provide narratives with some of the most exciting and compelling events pulled out of ordinary moments. Now, you know that epiphanies happen when you are doing your day-to-day activities, because epiphanic moment is any moment wherein you will have that sudden realization that a particular thing has happened because of this, and you will get answers to your questions. So epiphanies are rare occurrences marked by great philosophical, spiritual, or personal insight. You might get a spiritual insight. You are doing a particular thing and you will get an answer. You'll get a philosophical answer to your question or a spiritual answer to your question. What is my life about? Maybe you are doing something and you really come to know the reason of your life. What is the reason of my life? Yes, such things, such insights you can have. So because epiphanies often occur in real life at such typical and everyday moments, they provide plays, poems, prose, and films with realistic yet inspiring instances of revelations. So epiphanies also provide readers and audiences with hope as the ability to see things in a new way and to change their lives and to change our lives is inspiring and redeeming, especially for people who have struggled to succeed or to find higher meaning in life. As a plot device, epiphany often marks a turning point in the character's psyche, which leads to the eventual conclusion of the story. So, a particular story is going on, and suddenly the hero or suddenly the protagonist, he realizes something, and it dawns on him, yes, that he was committing this particular mistake up till now. It is that turning point in the story, okay? That particular moment which is responsible for the change in his life. So that is that epiphanic moment. That is the point of realization where he realizes that, yes, here is the answer to my question. Yes, this is the cause. So that is that epiphanic moment. Now, see here, I've given you some examples. From these examples, we can understand epiphany. One is a common example, and the other one is from literature. I used to smoke a lot. Everyone let me know that it was bad for my health. However, I didn't pay any notice. One day I saw my 2-year-old baby trying to grab a stubbed out cigarette from the ashtray. Seeing this, it suddenly dawned on me how terrible smoking was, and I stopped smoking. See, every day people were telling him not to smoke, okay? But he did not realize the seriousness. So suddenly, one day when he saw his 2-year baby trying to grab a stubbed out cigarette, he realized the seriousness and how terrible it was. So this is that epiphanic moment, that this is the point of realization. Now, let us see this example from Miss Brill. We find another example of epiphany in the short story Miss Brill. Yes, it is written by Catherine Mansfield. And Miss Brill, being delighted to be a part of the season in the Jardins public, particularly on Sundays, preparing herself for the occasion on a chilly day. She wears her fur coat, walks towards a band playing music in the park. She sees life everywhere around her. It pleases her to imagine that she is a part of all that takes place. But in a flash of epiphany, she recognizes that she and everyone else in the park are mere actors acting out their roles. So there was nothing important about the gathering of actors, and she was alone despite being with a crowd. So, many a times you might be in a party and suddenly you realize something, oh, and you become sad. So that is, and whatever that realization is that epiphanic moment. The purpose of epiphany in a novel or a short story is to point out a turning point for a character. So this becomes a turning point. This point of realization, it becomes the turning point, or in the plot in the near future. It may also be used to change the opinion of one character about other characters, events, and places after a sudden awareness of the situation. It may also be a sign of conclusion in the story. Why conclusion? Because that is the reason. The actually the when the protagonist, or when the hero, or when the central character, when he realizes, when there is a dawn of realization of a particular thing, that is the turning point in the, if he is a bad person, and during that epiphanic moment he has that realization and he turns into a good man, that is that epiphanic moment. Okay. Or maybe if you want to do a particular, if you uh, in James Joyce, the portrait of young man as an artist, he realizes, looking at the girl who is there in that lake, and just by looking at that girl, he realizes that yes, he should be an artist. Okay, so that realization dawns on him by just looking at this girl, and so that is that epiphanic moment. So this epiphanic moment can happen anytime. Whenever you are doing your casual work, it can, the realization of what you want to do in life, it can suddenly strike you. Yes, oh yes, this is what I wanted. So that is that epiphanic moment. Now, what is an epitaph? An epitaph, now it is a short text honoring a deceased person. Deceased person, a person who is no more, a person who is dead. On the tomb of that person, uh, the family members, they write something to honor the dead. Strictly speaking, it refers to the text that is inscribed on the tombstone or a plaque. So, but it may also be used in figurative sense. Some epitaphs are specified by the person themselves before their death. So many poets, many people write their own epitaphs. So, and that epitaph is put on the tombstone when the person is dead. So while others are chosen by those responsible for the burial. So some people write their own epitaph, for some, their near and dear ones write for them. An epitaph may be written in prose or in poem verse. Poets have been known to compose their epitaphs prior to their death. William Shakespeare had done this. He had prepared his own epitaph before his death. So most epitaphs, now what are these epitaphs? What is written generally in these epitaphs? Most epitaphs are brief records of family and perhaps the career of the deceased, often with a common expression of love or respect. For example, beloved father, but others are more ambitious. From the Renaissance to the 19th century in Western culture, Epitaphs for notable people became increasingly lengthy and pompous descriptions of their family origins, career, virtues, and immediate family, often in Latin. So people used to praise, people used to write the things which the person has done in his career, okay, his virtues, they used to write in short on the tombstone. Now, here are some examples. See, one example I have given here. This is an epitaph. Rest in peace, in loving memory, until we meet again. A life measured in memories. So, this is one line which is written on the tombstone. Now, how is an epitaph written? There is generally the full name and the birth and the death dates. Then a quote is chosen from the Bible, okay? And it there is a Bible, there is a quote from the Bible which appears, and something to remind us that eternal life is promised by God. So there is a quote, there is something from the Bible uh, chosen to remind us about life and death, about the eternity of the soul. Okay. Euphemism. Now we come to the last, this thing, euphemism. Now, what is euphemism? Harsh reality communicated or conveyed in a smoother way. That is euphemism. Now, what is this harsh reality and how it is communicated in a smoother way? So, euphemism is a figure of speech commonly used to replace a word or phrase that is related to a concept which might make others uncomfortable. So, if you use harsh words, it might be very uncomfortable for the person who is listening to you. For example, if we say your father or his father is dead, so that is very, very, yes, it might hurt a person or it sounds very rude, harsh. So that's why we can say his father is no more or his father has passed away. So euphemism refers to figurative language designed to replace phrasing that would otherwise be considered harsh, impolite, or unpleasant. This literary device allows for someone to say what they mean indirectly without using literal language as a way of softening the impact of what is being said. So it softens the way, it does not have a very big impact. The reason for this would be for the sake of politeness, discretion, and other means of mitigating communication. Okay, now see, let us see these two examples. We have to let you go, Tom. Now, in this sentence, we have to let you go. Actually, we cannot say we have fired you. Now you are no more on the job. So instead of saying that we have removed you from the job, or we can say, or you are fired, instead of saying that, the person can be said, we have to let you go, Tom. So this is a smoother or a better way of saying. So Jimmy was sent to a correctional facility. Now, what is this correctional facility? Instead of saying Jimmy was sent to a jail or a prison, it is said that Jimmy was sent to a correctional facility. So this is euphemism, communicating or conveying harsh reality in a smoother tone. Now, these are the euphemism examples. Now, see, a toilet. Instead of saying toilet, you can say porcelain throne. Yes, funny examples. Okay, if a car is used, instead of used cars, you can say pre-owned cars. Okay, a person who is old, we don't say he's an old person, we say he's senior. Then euthanize, he's put to sleep, instead of saying, so this is a better way of saying. Okay, then if you say he's unemployed, it seems very, very harsh. So you can say he's between jobs. Then overweight can be said to be big boned. Divorce, yes, they have split. Instead of divorce, we can say they have split. He's well off. A person who is rich, we can say he's well off. Then correctional facility is prison. Yes. Then if instead of saying bald, you can say he's thin on top. Then these are so many, see, there are so many ways to communicate that the person has died. So we can say passed away, departed, lost, we have lost him, gone, he has gone, resting in peace. Okay, he's now resting in peace. He has met with untimely demise. Then he has met, now, yes, meet the maker. Yes, now he's gone to God. Yes, going to a better place. And eternal slumber. Slumber is sleep. So he's now enjoying eternal slumber. So that is a nice way of saying that he has died. So these are the different literary terms which are prescribed for an examination, and I hope you must have understood them. Conceit is an, see, we'll talk about just a little bit of revision because they are just one-liners. So what is a conceit? It is an extended metaphor. Conceit is an comparison only. It is an extended metaphor. Now, how the comparison is, I have already told you. Okay. In metaphysical conceit, very unsimilar or dissimilar things are put together. They are juxtaposed together. They are compared. So this is conceit. And what is the difference between a metaphor and a conceit? In metaphor also you have comparison, and in conceit also you have comparison. But in a metaphor, it is just in one line or in one sentence, or if it is a poem, it is just one or two lines. But if you're talking of conceit, this metaphor or this comparison, it will go on for a stanza or so. Or it might be the whole poem, which might be metaphorical, or which might have that particular comparison. So that comparison will be throughout the poem. So that is an elaborate metaphor, okay, extended metaphor. So there are two forms of conceit, two types of conceits. They are Petrarchan and metaphysical conceits. In Petrarchan, yes, it's a love. I've told you that it is an exaggeration of the what you say, exaggeration of the beauty maybe which is being compared. Or, so this is a Petrarchan conceit. So basically both of them are, conceits means comparisons only, but it is an implied comparison only, and very intellectual, very witty, very clever sort. There is cleverness intended. Commoners maybe might not be able to understand the comparison. It needs explanation. Okay, so this is conceit. So conceit is extended metaphor. Then decorum, I told you what is decorum. It is the appropriate rendering of character. That the character, the diction, the style, everything should be appropriate to the character, to the setting, to the scene. So appropriateness, that is called decorum. I told you how a person should wear clothes according to the occasion. So that is the decorum the person should maintain. The social etiquette. Okay, so all these will go in decorum. Appropriateness, remember that everything should be appropriate. Okay, where you are going, if you are going to a party, dress according to the occasion. Okay, if you are in a meeting, talk according to the decor. You should have the decorum of that particular official talk. Okay, so you should have a formal, you should wear formally, then the agenda should be there, the decorum of the meeting should be maintained, the atmosphere should be of the meeting. Okay, so that is called decorum. Then denouement, I told you that yes, in a story, you know that there is a conflict. First of all, it is the exposition, then there is climax, and then there is denouement, means the conflict is resolved. First of all, in every story there has to be some problem, otherwise there has to be a plot, there has to be a problem, and at the end the problem is solved. Okay, so when the problem is solved, that point is called denouement. And the readers should from the story, from the lines, the readers should know that you are coming to the end of the story. Okay, like from the beginning, when you are reading the beginning, the readers know that it is the introduction of the characters, it is the introduction of the plot, which, so you come to know just by reading that it is the beginning. So in the same way, when you are coming towards the end, people should know that this now we are getting a resolution, this is the conflict is being resolved. Yes, so we are coming to an end, we are getting solutions, so this is towards the end. So this is called the denouement. Okay, now dialects are different types, a language in different of one language in different forms. So dialect is any particular form of a language, that is one language, and the different forms of that language is called dialect, not different languages. It is the different form of a language, they are the dialects. Okay, then diction, I told you. Then epigraph, that which is written either on the buildings or the something, a quotation or some lines. Okay, it is before the book starts. So it is these tell you about the theme of the book. Okay, or it might be on a building which tells you what who are the people, what if people reside, or what is this building for. So it is inscribed on the buildings. Then epiphany, I told you, epiphanic moment, that is the point of realization. So that is that epiphanic moment, that is the point of realization. And epitaph, epitaphs are the short text which is honoring the deceased person, the person who has died. So something, the lines which are written on the tomb. And euphemism is harsh way of communicating the it is smoother way of communicating the harsh reality. So yes, so if you uh, instead of making people uncomfortable, you can use smoother ways, you can use polite ways to convey the impolite things. So that is euphemism. So yes, with this we come to the end of the literary terms. Thank you, and I hope you have understood these literary examples. Over to Dr. Dodevan. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Dear students, if you have any question, you can drop your questions in your chat box. I will read and madam will answer.
Do they have any questions?
I think they haven't posted any question.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Dear students, once again I want to know, if you have any question, you can drop your question in your chat box. I will read
Yes.
out and madam will answer. I think no question. Fine. Dear students, we are almost at the fag end of the session, and what is left is the formality to propose a vote of thanks. So, on behalf of Mahila Mahavidyalaya number 1 Nagpur, Aryas Mundle Dharampet Arts and Commerce College, Nagpur, Rajkumar Keval Ramani Kanya Mahavidyalaya and the Board of Studies in English, RTM Nagpur University, Nagpur, I express my deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Manjushri Sardesh Pandey for accepting our invitation and delivering a wonderful lecture on the literary terms. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. I also record my deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all the students who have extended wonderful response to this online course. Thank you, everyone. We will meet tomorrow with new topic and new speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.